Alright, let's talk about the basics of stringing a piano. And I have tried to draw here on this side the very basic stringing pattern, which is a horrible representation, but here are the tuning pins 1 through 6. I think of two notes together most of the time, one note sometimes. When you have what's called a hitch, down there if it'll focus, when you have a hitch, you'll have two different wires for one note. This is one note. Normally two notes are strung together if there's no hitch. And so here are the tuning pins roughly laid out the way they are here. This is gonna be the next two notes. These 6 tuning pins, these 2 A graphs, these 2 notches on the board, and those 3 hitch pins for the 3 wires. So that's why that's where the complication is. There's 3 wires. One string is used on both of these 2 notes. So the first string goes down, second string goes around, third string goes around like that. So when I'm stringing a piano, the first thing to keep in my mind is the brace underneath there. Don't be pounding on tuning pins without something underneath there. You're going to break at best you'll break the pin block, at worst you could even break the plate if you hit it hard enough. So always have a brace under there. That's number one. And then the second thing is the scale. Here's the scale number is 17. We're going to be using 17 wire. This manufacturer labels the wires going this way. Other ones put them on the bridge. Just before you take the piano apart or before you go to string a piano, just make sure you understand what the scale is, and also that involves the hitch pins next. So, from the bottom, I string going this way. From the bottom up, pay attention. There's one other loop back here. You can put a piece of tape on these things to remind yourself or whatnot. And you can always check yourself as you're going if you want to just make sure that you haven't made a mistake. You can count up the number of notes here and then divide that by 2, multiply that by 3, and you'll get the number of hitch pins. And make sure the wire, the number of these is the same as the notes, and this is going to work out too. That's remembering the scale. So make sure you have a brace underneath there, and make sure the scale is right. And that's pretty much the only 2 things that are in my head when I'm stringing a piano. And now if I can do this while people are watching me, I'll try not to mess it up. Put the wire through here. Wire number 1, tuning pin number 1. Can you see this? I'm going to use this string crank, which I put there's tape all over everything. So now I get to the next most important thing, which is forming the becket, which is making this, when I'm going to bend this piece of wire, right in the beginning of the loop, you want a nice neat coil, and you want the becket at a real right angle. So it's going to be hard to show you how to do this, so on a video, but maybe you can see what's going on. And then you want 1, 2, 3 loops. You want this to be nice and tight, even when it's loose. You want the coils to be nice and tight. It'll be just easier to deal with for the rest of the job. So tap that in, put the wire down here. Hopefully I can reach all the way down there without going around. Okay, got it. And then cut it. You're gonna have to find your own spot to cut on your cutters to make the wire the right length. You want all the beckets to line up at 3 o'clock when you're done. That's something that I can't explain to you how to do it. You're just going to have to mess it up and redo it and mess it up and redo it. And so now the T-hammer, this is much easier and less stressful because all I'm going to do is basically pull back on it. It's going to form that becket without me using my thumb very much. So that's why I switched tools. I don't use the crank there because the T-hammer is just so much easier on your fingers. So now we're at wire number 2. Again, try to form this. Can you see? Form this becket perfectly. Form the coil. Don't lose count because you're trying to think of what you're going to say next. 3 coils in this area. Make sure you don't skip a hitch pin or anything. Don't kink the wire while you're doing this, while you're trying to reach around the camera without knocking the camera over. Yeah, now the wire's caught. But anyway, moving on. Cut it to the right length. Again, going for the T-hammer. Make it neat. And just when I'm putting these in here, the tuning pin number 1, the becket is over here at 9 o'clock, facing this way, because when I tune it, when I pull it up to pitch, I'm going to pull this over to 3 o'clock. The second one, just by the number of times I've done this, I know I want this coil, this becket, to be down here at 6 o'clock, basically close to 6 o'clock. It's not quite 6 o'clock. This one's more on 6 o'clock. And you'll learn over time by feel that if that's way off, to just stop it, take the wire off, and do that over again. To get, getting the length of the wire right is important. There we go. Wire number 3. Really am having trouble doing this with the camera on. It's alright. I can fix it later after you guys are gone. 1, 2, 3. That was a pretty mediocre coil. Yep, get it on the right side of the thing. And the wire's a little short, but it's something I can fix. Now cover your ears. I'm gonna make some noise. Alright, one of the other real stupid mistakes that you can make at this point is pounding the pin down too far. You can always go back and fix that later, so there's no reason to have these too low. As you can see, I left them way high on purpose. Now I'm going to pull on string number 1, but the middle of this A graph, it's going to go to pin number 2. I'm going to start pulling this up to pitch. So this becket down here is at 6 o'clock about. I'm going to pull this up. I'm holding this with a string hook. I did a little spacing right away. I went over to the A graph, spaced it on the string rest, and now I'm holding it up so that it makes a nice, neat coil down there. Can you see that? Okay. And then string number 1, pin number 1, is going to come up like this, and I did leave it a little short left the wire a little short, so I'm going to remember that for next time. You can check. You get to hear when the pitch is right, because you want to leave these things tight so that the loops don't fall apart and stuff. So that's not super tight. I could go tighter with that string without breaking it, but that's tight enough to hold it into place. So I just went on string number 2, pin number 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, spaced it from the A graft to here. Hold up the coil. The length of the wire on this one's going to be better. These are about 3 o'clock. It's going to be that's a little closer in pitch, so it might be a little more wire on that one. You'll get a better feel for this as you go. The last one. This one's better yet. So those are pretty close. This should be higher in pitch too. So that's higher in pitch, and it's just about those two things. Now I'm going to go back and later pound these down a little more. So that's basically how you do the 2s. And then there's the case of the single ones where you have to make a loop, what I call a loop instead of or this is a hitch instead of a loop, sorry. I have a pair of these pliers. See if I can do this on camera. There's no way I'll be able to do this very neatly the first time while I'm trying to watch it through here. But find a spot on here that's roughly the size of the hitch pin. Bend it around like this. You see that? And I take the pliers out. Now you have this rough thing made like this. Grab it like this. Bend it over. Notice I didn't... It's much bigger than it's going to end up, but I'm going to fix that later. So now you put however many coils you want this way on there. You keep this very tight to the what you could call the core wire. If there's a little bit of gap on the other wire, between here and here, it's all right, because after this is on and in place, I'm going to hit this and tighten it up against the hitch pin. So you want these loops to be tight in one way, but if they're like an accordion, if they're stretched out a little bit, I'll accept it and then go back and punch them in. So that's how you make a single wire. So I'm sure I left stuff out, but too bad.